I think I kind of explained. Start with the general information piece. You are together, though necessarily you're not running against each other because we're a small group. So you have 2 minutes at the beginning. I'll just say your name, and during that 2 minutes, you can explain something about your goals or what you see that your job is for the tribe, or any explanation you'd like to give for 2 minutes, okay? And after we've done that, then I will ask you some questions that were sent to me related to the judge and the trust, okay? And you have 2 minutes to answer those. And after probably about 3 questions, then we'll have a time for, you can make a closing remark, you know, an explanation about your job or your feelings about it or whatever you want in 2 minutes, okay? So it's 2, 2, and 2, all right? All right, we're going to start over here because Linda is over here all alone.
Wait a minute, wait.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes, I didn't explain. Over here is the lady who's going to wave her little magic flags, and she's got a clock for 2 minutes, and she'll hold up when you have only 30 seconds left, and then she'll hold up a stop sign, and then she'll jump up and down. Maybe not the last part.
Okay.
All right.
I don't know.
Okay, Linda, if you would like to go ahead and explain something about your position as a tribal judge, and you have 2 minutes to do that.
Okay, thank you. My background has really been in education. I retired about 2 years ago after 40 years as being a school teacher, working in higher ed, then 17 years as a Head Start director, and then going to tribal child care. In my last position, I was director of the Tribal Child Care Technical Assistance Center, and we provided training and technical assistance to 260 tribes who receive federal child care dollars. And since I retired, I've been kind of looking for how I could continue on with my work life a little bit. And when this position became open, I thought, you know, this is an area where I can use my knowledge and my skills and my expertise that I've gained over 40 years to help my tribe. So I think in the position of a judge, since we primarily deal with Indian child welfare cases and cases dealing with child support enforcement, that I have the skills and background to make good decisions, knowledgeable decisions, based on research, but also based on having a heart, and very much have compassion for both children and families, and in family situations, you know, not just moms, but also dads, trying to be fair, looking at both sides, and deciding what is best for this family, but always keeping that child foremost in the situation. So I think I would be a fair judge, and I don't have a legal background, but my position would be a lay judge, and I would rely a lot on the judges we currently have who are lawyers.
All right, thank you. All right, now we're going to move over to the trust board side, and they're going to give an explanation of their own participation as members of the trust board. Okay, Mr. Brooks will start, and then Mr. Scott.
I'm Joe Brooks, and I've served on the Tribal Council and Trust Board now off and on, sometimes both at the same time for 37 years. I'm honored to serve my people, and I do my best to vote from my heart what I think is best for all Delaware people, nationwide and worldwide. I'm honored to be a member of the Delaware Trust Board, and we provide services to all of our tribal members in-state and out-of-state. We do education, scholarships, community services. We do elder prescription drugs, rental assistance, utility bill assistance, and just a lot of different programs that we furnish to our tribal members. So I think it's very, very necessary for the trust board to stay intact and continue to furnish services to our tribal members. At one point, our trust monies were down to $3.2 million. Today, we've increased that to $4.3 million, and we use the interest on this money to provide services to our members. So I think it's very important that we continue to do that. And I look forward to serving 4 more years on the Delaware Trust Board.
Thank you, Mr. Brooks. Mr. Scott?
Yes, my interest is on the trust board. Well, actually, I've been on the trust board for 9 years. I'm a member on several different committees, and my interest is for the people, the welfare of the people, for their education and their health. Since we've had got into some more money in our education, we lowered our community service and added so much money to our education because we had so many people on education that we're happy that, you know, all over the United States that more and more people, students are getting interested in it. And we try to keep up with all the committees and preserve what money we have and what we're going to do to help other people out. We're also going to do the best we can on our interest, what interest we make on our budget deal and our account. We want to become the people that you could trust in handling and protecting our investments in our money.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. We're going to move back to our judge candidate, Linda Kilscroll. And I have a couple of questions. This will be your chance to, I guess, educate the listeners or the people here. We had a couple of questions related to conflict of interest. I wondered if you could, in relationship to the judge assignment, what would be a conflict of interest and how would you deal with that?
Well, I know in the past, the tribal court has sometimes heard grievances or disputes between tribal members and tribal council. I don't think that's a big part of what the current tribal court might be doing, but I don't think anyone should be, who's a judge, should be hearing cases that have the involvement of a relative, that if you have a relative or have a vested interest in a particular situation that you should be involved in the final decision. I know that we currently have a judge who is in Michigan, and it's my understanding that if there was a grievance that came before the court, that we would recuse ourselves, those of us who live in this immediate area, and she would handle that particular hearing so that it's totally outside of our scope. And I know that some people have asked us, since my son is also running for tribal council, I wouldn't hear any cases that involve the tribal council or anything that he may be involved in. I think there's got to be a very distinct line that you have to recuse yourself in those kind of situations.
Okay, thank you. If you're comfortable, I'm going to go ahead and ask you the other question I have for judges, and then we'll have them and we'll just go back and forth between the two of them. The other question was related to, do you know or what is a court plan for ICWA related to family services?
I know there is a plan. We're in the process of writing codes. Several codes have been written and passed by the current council, but there are also several codes that need to be added and some that need to be updated. And I think as the ICWA program here with the tribe grows, we'll be continually adding different codes. One of my real concern is if we have codes, are we sure that we have a way to monitor and enforce them? And some of the codes I've currently read, it really brings a lot of concern to me that I'm not sure we do have a way to enforce them and monitor them. And I don't feel like they're of much value if we don't have that system in place also. So it's not just writing codes and passing them and saying we can do these things, but how do we enforce and ensure that they're going to happen in the way that we intended when that law or code was written.
Okay, thank you. Now I'm going to pass some questions back and forth, and then we'll have closing remarks. Okay, Mr. Brooks, the first question I was sent is, can you explain why it's necessary to have a trust board? And you'll both get to answer this question.
I think it's necessary to have a trust board because the tribal council is overseeing all the grants that are approved, and they're already managing all of the money from the grants, plus all the tribal departments. And I feel it's necessary for the trust board to manage the trust monies that we received 1991 for our tribal members' sake and for services to our tribal members. I feel that people want the trust board to stay intact. They're satisfied with the job the trust board's doing. And so far, we're doing a good job of doing that. We see our balances going down. We adjust our budgets each year. Every year we have a different budget. So.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Brooks. Mr. Scott, what do you think is necessary? Why is it necessary to have a trust board? How do you see that?
I look at having a trust board is to try to keep our money intact and our trust money in the bank, and keep it separate from the council, and hoping that we would make agreements with the council and the trust board to be on the level together on what we're going to do with our trust money, and for the people that we are interested in, just like Joe said, distributing our money on different services, and what we're going to do in the future. We're looking at the future for our future plans on this committee's growing, and hopefully our interest in our accounts and everything would grow too, so we can make this a stronger board to distribute all these funds.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Scott. Now, I have another question. It's kind of together. Do you think that we, I assume maybe the tribe, are doing enough to raise funds for your committee, and do you have any ideas for fundraisers? Mr. Brooks?
We have talked about writing some grants, or getting some help writing some grants for our education committee, and we need more money in education. Each year, it seems like our education department of the trust, the needs are more and more every year. More and more students nationwide are applying for these scholarships. I feel we need to do something to raise more money from the trust board to furnish services to our tribal members for future generations. We usually only set the budget about 60 to 70% of what we earn that year off the interest, so we can continue to raise services for our tribal members.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Brooks. And Mr. Scott, you might turn your mic a little bit towards you.
Yeah,
That might help.
I apologize.
Okay, we want to hear your thoughts. Okay, the same question is for you. Do you think that the tribe is doing enough to raise funds for the committees? And do you have any ideas yourself for fundraisers?
Yes, I think we need more fundraisers because more and more people are coming out to touch our applications to the things we need that they're getting into as far as education and welfare and elders. That's a big concern of mine on the elders part. We pray. I mean, as far as fundraising, we have several things that we could do, like different let's say auctions or bingo or something like that, to bring more money into our funds, so we could distribute it to more of our people on different occasions that we do need. I'm hoping that our tribe will look at what we're trying to do for our people, and while we're distributing this money and how we're going to use it.
Okay, thank you. So now we're going to go to the ending part, which is you each get 2 minutes again to say something about your position on either the judge or the trust board, and any explanation or education and information that you'd like to share at this time. So, Ms. Gilsgrove?
Thank you. I was really excited on Friday to learn that the tribe was given a new grant for our tribal courts of $163,000 plus. They've been operating on a budget of about $50-something thousand, and so going up to $163,000 is really going to give us the opportunity to develop those codes that I was talking about earlier, to really get our court off the ground. I think they're averaging about 1 case a month now, but I think we can really reach out to the community. A lot of our tribal members don't know that we exist as a court or what the court can do for them. And I think we can offer more and more services, especially for those tribal members in this part of Oklahoma, but possibly for others around the country. But I think this additional money is really going to help us get the court off the ground. I'm excited, and I think it'll be just a good opportunity for us to make the court a viable part of our tribe. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gilsgrove. All right. Turn my out. All right, Mr. Brooks.
In closing, I just want to say that I'm proud to be a member of the Tribal Council and the Trust Board. And I know some of our people say it is a conflict of interest to be on both, but I don't feel that it is a conflict of interest if you vote from your heart on both boards, what you think is right for the people. I'm also proud of these young people stepping up, running for office, because some of us are getting older. We're not going to be around forever. I put in 37 years, and I'm getting tired and worn out, and I'm glad to see some younger people getting involved. And whatever the people vote, I think I'll abide by that. Whatever the people vote nationwide, not a little local group, I think it needs to be put out different stuff for a referendum vote of the people. Whatever the people decide, and we need to listen to our tribal people out of state and in state, and do whatever the people guide us to do.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brooks. All right, Mr. Scott.
Yes, I'm interested in what our people are looking forward as a trust board member. Our interest in what we want to do with our funds and everything. I want to thank the younger people that, like Joe said, coming into office. I would like to see more people get more interested in our trust board meetings that we have. It's an open meeting. I'd like to see more people get involved in, so they can ask questions and we can answer questions on what they think on different situations. I'm proud to be a trust board member. I've been a trust board for, like I said, 9 years. Before then, I was doing a lot of management work on different ranches, and so that helped me out on some of the things that I'm doing with the trust board. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Scott. All right, we thank you three for being here today and explaining your positions on things related to your work with the tribe. So you may step down and we'll move someone else forward. Six councilmen here?
We have 5, 6.
Did they give you a time at all when you would start? Because
No.
I just had time to switch out in a couple minutes. So
Like I said, it starts at, it goes in that.
Homer, you need to come back. Homer.
You gotta come back. Go to your neighbor.
Yeah. Did we not- did we get any questions from the group that he was here?
I couldn't see it.
Okay, well, I'll just keep using the ones that we went over then.
I'll watch on Facebook.
Well, he'll take all of yours. By first name or? JT.
Can you wait just a minute? We need to get our
I was
paper.
gonna say, I only know what I see on those papers.
Can we wait just a second till we get the live book, Facebook?
Sure, fine.
I leave glasses. Wait 1 minute, I got the
Whatever, it's all
glasses.
right. I can talk to you and tell you what's gonna happen without being done.
Yeah.
Thank you, Charles.
I'm gonna go ahead, I'll just tell them about stuff. that doesn't
Okay.
need to be- Okay, if you're watching what happened before, it's gonna be a similar thing, since you're all running for council, we'll just do alphabetical as far as you each have 2 minutes at the beginning, I'll just call your name, to give an explanation for your position and educate them about the council and what you're running for, okay? And we'll do all of you. And then after everyone has spoken with their own introduction, you have 2 minutes, and the lady over here will time you. And when you get down to 30 seconds, she holds up your little yellow card, and if you get to the end, she'll raise up a stop sign, okay? So we ask you to keep to that if you can. Then, after everybody has done their opening, then I'll ask questions, and I will not start with the first person, I'll start with the second person. It's not nice to always start with the first person. So then we'll go for the question, and then like the third question, or second question, I'll start with you. And the third question, go down. So that the same person is goes first. Okay. But you each have a 2 minutes to answer a question. You can answer it shortly, if it's like, yes, no, that's right. Whatever you want to say, or you have 2 minutes. We just ask you. Okay. Should be time. You good? Okay. Be sure to turn your mics on when you talk. Are we ready? They want you to be able to hear you. All right, next we have the tribal council members today. And we have Bonnie Jo Griffith. If I say your name wrong, you better tell me, I'll just say it wrong the whole time. Jeremy Johnson, Brad Kilscrow, Nikki Michael, and Homer Scott. All right, we're going to start with Bonnie Jo Griffith, and they're going to start with 2 minutes of introduction of themselves as a tribal council member. Okay, and what they're running for. All right, thank you. Begin.
All right, well, I'm Bonnie Jo Griffith. I've been on the council now for almost 4 years. I'm running for re-election. I have been honored to serve as the assistant chief for almost 4 years now. And we as a group have accomplished many things that we want to continue. We had representation in DC day before yesterday and got very good news out of the Department of Interior on our trust application. We've received recently the grant that I believe Ms. Kilscrow referred to, plus an additional $70,000, which will be used for this building and the cultural center to put in automatic doors on all of these doors, put a awning over out here, put a ramp, and security for our new culture center. There's no security down in that building right now, but we will be able to have cameras and things installed down there, an alarm, as that gets remodeled. We've also received, Historic Preservation just received a $43,000, $200 grant. Cultural Resources just received an $18,570 grant. Historic Preservation received another grant for $89,287, and another grant for them also of $20,000. So we're in the process, and I want to help keep these things going. We need some new faces, but we need to continue on with some of us that are on there that are as a team working on these projects. Thank you.
Ms. Griffith. Thank you, Ms. Griffith. All right, Mr. Johnson.
Well, my name is Jeremy Johnson. I decided to run for tribal council after many months, actually. I think it's into a year or so. of deliberation, seeing what was going on with our tribe, and just in a sense of what our tribal members needed, really. I really wanted to, I had some ideas, I started discussing things with my fellow tribal members, and we started coming up with all these plans, and after a while, we started talking to ourselves, amongst ourselves, and saying, well, why don't we get in there and try and help? And that's the main reason for my running, is I want to be able to help the best that I can our tribal members. And I obviously talk about from the youngest to the oldest and everyone in between, trying to take care of these folks, trying to help expand our services and our programs for all tribal members in any way we can. I think sometimes it's good to get sets of fresh eyes into organizations to see what new directions we can take and how to utilize and make more efficient the processes which are already in place and being worked upon. But I think new ideas are always going to be something that are welcome. I think that we need to be able to hear the voices of our members a little bit more clearly. I think we need to communicate a little bit more to our members through many different avenues, whether it be social media, whether it just be open meetings, town hall meetings, things like that. But those are some of the reasons I really wanted to run. I really do just want to serve our tribal members the best I possibly can, and to help as much as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Brad Hillsgrove?
Right. Thank you. Like Jeremy, it took a lot of thought, prayer, decision, talk with my family, talk with a lot of tribal elders, noticed I wanted to be an asset to my tribe, and I wanted to do something for my tribe, and I wanted to get involved. And the reason why I ran is like I said, the last 8 years I've been the ICBG director for the Tonkawa tribe in Tonkawa, Oklahoma, and seen all their services, the economic development that they have over there, and the services they provide to their tribal members, from their youngest to their oldest, just not in the Tonkawa area, but throughout the whole United States. And it got me to thinking, you know, what's going on with my tribe? You know, I'm over here putting in hard work for these other people, doing all these other things. Why can't I come over here and put this hard work in and service my own people? So with a lot of thoughts and prayers and encouragement, I decided that I was going to throw my name in a hat. I have a lot of ideas. Economic development is one of them. I know I've heard the trust board members earlier talking about fundraising. There's a lot of things I want to do to boost money for the trust board so they can provide those services. I've talked to a lot of people these last few months, all the way from the state of California, Texas, New Mexico, Canada, all throughout the United States, and healthcare is a big issue for a lot of tribal members, not in our service area, not in the Cherokee Nation service area, but that's something that we need to look at. That's one of the biggest concerns that they talk about. So I would like to be able to provide economic development for that purpose, so we can get those services to those members. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hillsgrove. Nikki K. Michael?
Likishku, it's on the Wednesday, o Katayahwe, Linapeni, Neguis, Ampekinu, o Kashakakahane, o Ampekinu. Hi, my name is Nikki Michael. I'm currently serving as a tribal council member. It's my honor to be up here with all of these wonderful Delaware people and candidates. I think any one of them will serve you well. And so I'm here just to put in my name and say, you know, I'm open to serving, and I would be honored to do so. This 4 years that I've served on the tribal council and the 2 years before that on the trust board, I came on the trust board about the same time that we were at a low. So I was with the team that adjusted our trust board finances and the program itself to increase the interest that it gained. So I was part of that team effort to get it to where it is today. And then I wanted to move to the tribal council and see what I could do there. And I fought really hard for some of the programs. Some of those programs came to fruition, like our Section 106 in the Tribal Historic Preservation, and those funds, garnered about $5 million after the 4 years were up. And served a lot of our programs well. Additionally, I served on the grant steering committee, and on that grant steering committee, for the time that I was on it, 2015 and 16, we got every grant that we applied for. Violence against women was one of the biggest ones that I was really excited to get. And the other thing I want to make sure to mention is that I fight really hard for our youth and education programs. I work with the Stanford alumni, and I also work with our former universities and our former reservation areas.
Thank you, Ms. Michael. All right, Mr. Scott.
Yes, I want to thank these people here on this. I want to thank all these people that's on running for council, especially our younger people. We need more younger people involved in our council, our people to help run our tribe. I really appreciate these young people coming in and doing this. Because like one of the council, one of the trust board members said that we are getting old, and we need that the young people to step up and take our place. At the same time, I'm running for council because I want to get more into economic development and using different grants on different things to do better things for our people, to get more widespread in what we're doing. There's a lot of things I'd like to voice out to people, to ask questions, to be more open, for us to be more open to people and to people be more open to us, so we can discuss and to agree on things what we need to help the tribe with. I agree with a couple of these members, these candidates on all the things that they wanted to look into, and I'm on board with them, and that those are some of the things that I would like to get into before they had mentioned it before me. So,
Okay, thank you, Mr. Scott. All right, now we're going to have the first question. We're going to start with Mr. Johnson. Okay, this question, since you've already said a couple, we had a question related to economic development. So what are some of your plans to bring real economic development to the tribe? And each person gets your chance to talk about that. So we'll start with Mr. Johnson.
Well, first of all, economic development is a large question. It's a very important question that we really need to consider, and we have to take careful consideration. I think the first thing, though, we need to establish a vision and goals for our tribe before we can actually really pursue meaningful, long-term, focused economic development for our tribe. If we don't have a vision and goals, we don't know where we're going. We don't know what type of economic development is going to accomplish those goals that we're trying to set for our tribe. However, some ideas we did have, and I've spoken with a few members about, are things that I'm sure Brad can touch on a little bit even more. Small companies, whether it's, and he'll talk more about this, I'm sure, running cattle, small businesses where we employ members and set aside profits for services. There are all kinds of different ways we can do that, but we need to have feasibility studies. We need to get our Delaware Economic Development Committee on these issues. We need to turn it over to them. We need to have them conduct the feasibility studies. We need them to come back with recommendations, because as a tribal council member, we can't do everything relating to the tribe. So we have to be able to delegate some of those responsibilities. If we have a committee that is dedicated to economic development, we need to utilize that committee to the best we possibly can to make our systems more efficient. I really think that is one way that we can start seriously thinking about economic development, is turning some of the things over with our ideas and having our committees take care of some of those, and conducting the studies and giving us recommendations so that we can decide what would be best and what direction to achieve our vision and goals for our tribe. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. All right, Mr. Kilsgrove.
All right, yeah, as you can tell, Jeremy and I have had many conversations about this exact topic. Main thing is, we probably agree on 99.9% of everything he said. We do need a strategic plan. We need to sit down as a tribal council and get a 5-year, 10-year plan, exactly what we're going to do, how we're going to achieve it, how, you know, the means and the ways we're going to achieve the things that we want to do as economic development. We do have an economic development board. I'd like to utilize them. Feasibility studies obviously is going to be a key issue. ICDBG has economic development grants, $500,000 grants over in Tonkawa. We just built a truck stop off I-35, and they're making money left and right. You know, obviously we're not going to get a casino. We're not going to get those type of things that other tribes get. But there's other ways that we can do to make money to provide services for our members. And you know, if we do have a nice truck stop, or we do get into the cattle business, those are things that, like Homer Scott's got, you know, the expertise in the cattle industry. He can steer us in the right direction and show us exactly where we need to go, what we need to buy, how we need to do those things. But those are some ideas. There's some small businesses, other ventures out there that I would like to get into, but there's no reason we shouldn't be using our ICBG economic development to fund our tribe and to put our members at work and give us money for our services, for our trust board, and for our tribe. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tugos. A lot of head nodding over there. Ms. Michael?
Yeah, no, I totally agree with them. I feel like we need that strategic planning process. We need an outside facilitator. I think we need professional help, not just, you know, getting together with our internal meetings. We need people that can help steer us in the right direction. And that means that, you know, that outside expertise could help guide us. Some of the additional items that I would consider, in addition to the cattle, I would also include buffalo ranching and a few other, you know, types of land endeavors. But I'd also include, you know, internet companies. There's sky's the limit on internet and selling our wares. Also, economic development means putting our people to work. That's one aspect of it, and then there's the economic development for the tribe itself. So we need to work on both sides of the coin. And I also know that there's the most successful tribes out there use partnerships. We do have partnerships in some regards, but I believe that if we partnered with Shakopee up in, you know, Minnesota, or the Seminole Tribe of Florida, you know, some of us, all of us have different networks that we could be using to develop those, and they would love to help, you know, a tribe like ours. And the last thing I want to say is that we are in desperate need of economic development. We're not just 25 years behind, we're 50 years behind on our economic development. So this does need to be the highest of priorities.
Thank you, Ms. Michaels. All right, Mr. Scott.
Yes, I want to thank both the young men over here for saying something about me. I've been in the cattle business. I've been doing that for many years. I was raised up on a farm. I managed several ranches almost all my life. And the cattle business is, you know, is an up and down situation. But anyway, the economic development, it means a lot to me, and it helps the people to get more interested in what we're going to do on different businesses. Like Nick said, to get more businesses in what are for our tribe and for other people. In doing that, we've had a lot of our members be on these committees on our economic development. The cattle deal, what Nikki said, and I'm also looking at for the elders. We need a committee. We need something for the elders. That's one of my big goals, because we got several elders that needs a lot of help, and I'm looking for to have some of our younger people that's been had to college and practice medical medicine to come out and work in this field. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Scott. All right, Bonnie Jo Griffin.
Yes, well, I'm going to touch on a couple of things. First, we have had strategic planning meetings, but we have city members who have come in late or failed to attend. So it's hard to get that going when you don't have the buy-in from the tribal council. Also, we have economic development in the works, not as much as any of us would like. We did bring the domicile direct to the tribe, which is making money for us. A number of us, Chief and Councilor Brooks, we've talked about storage units, which would employ at least one tribal member and rake in some dollars. There's just a lot of things we can do besides the grants to bring things in. We've got the Delaware Economic Development Commission, and they are working on bringing us new ideas. So I think, have we done enough? No. Have we done as much as we wanted? No. But we're working on it every day. I mean, we spend time every day discussing things. Chief and I sit down a couple of times a week and talk about it. So it's getting a buy-in from all of the council. We need a strategic plan, absolutely, but it's going to take more than a 2-hour meeting. We need to spend 2 or 3 days locked up and planning this. So we just need to regroup. I want to be part of that group. I feel like we're making a lot of headway, like I said, with the domicile. That has helped us a lot, and we're still working out some kinks on things that we have ideas for.
All right, thank you, Bonnie Jo Griffith. All right, we'll start now with Brad. Now this, new people, this may be, I don't know, I can't explain it for you, so this question is related to the 100 quorum. It says, why is it important to have a 100 quorum at General Council?
Well, if you want to get anything passed, or if you want to do anything, we need the bodies there, obviously. There's been a lot of talk about maybe having a general council meeting during the Delaware powwow when all of our Delawares are home for the powwow. It'd be a perfect time rather than just a November election. But if we couldn't, really can't get a whole lot said and done and passed and get things through without having the 100 quorum there. As you can tell today, I mean, we probably have a total of 20 people here that are interested and showed up, and that's kind of unfortunate, in my opinion. I wish more people were here, able to get involved, but I know a lot of our 93% of our tribe lives outside of Washington County, so not all of them can make every meeting and be here all the time. I know that's why we're live streaming this, and hopefully they can feel like they're a part of it. We want them to be a part of it, but again, we need 100, like I said, 100 people. We got to have them for to get anything passed in a meeting of that nature. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kisco. Ms. Michael?
Yes, the General Council is the supreme authority of the tribe. So to get 100 people here, and in order to gauge their opinions, and in order to understand what their needs are, we need those bodies here. Now that doesn't mean they're not a part of the General Council if they're not at the meeting. The general body of the people, that is the General Council. And since time immemorial, that has been our supreme authority. When I started researching in the 1800s, anything that was written down talked about our General Council, our leaders. They were chosen by consensus. It wasn't about, a tribal election like we have today. This was part of the Oklahoma Indian Welfare Act. It's an imposed position, it's an imposed act on us. And so we're trying to fit our traditional systems into a non-Indian system, or a non-Indian way of doing things. And so it's not gone smooth, which is why we need to get our people back invested in our programming. And to bounce off of what Brad said, yes, 93% of our people are out there. There's groups like Our Voices Matter that have started to really think about and organize in a way that would help express what those needs are, and I'm really appreciative of those members. I hold conference calls on Sunday nights at 8 o'clock, listening to some of their concerns. Healthcare is definitely some of them. But that supreme authority always rests in the people.
All right, thank you, Ms. Michael. All right, Mr. Scott.
So I want to thank these members, these candidates. They said everything I'd like to have said, but they never had me. But anyway, I agree with them. On the 100% to me, that shows me as if I was a council member, how many people is really interested in what our tribe does, who are there to ask questions and see what we are voting on for passing different things for the tribe. The people is our, to me, is our voice. We listen to them. They're the one that we try to help out, and outside our tribe. And so, as a council member, I like to listen to these people, listen to their voices. So, here as a council member, so we could discuss some of the things that they were interested in and some questions that needed that rise up on certain occasions. I would like the council to be more open than what has happened in the past. That's my main goal. How you gonna be more open if you bring more people if you're not open to the people. So that's my goal.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Okay, Ms. Griffin?
Yes, 100-member quorum. That's not an outrageous amount. We did have a couple of council members here a year or two ago wanted to drop it to 25. We've got over 11,000 members. 100 is not an outrageous number. We've got apathy in our tribe, just like on the national level. If people aren't upset, they don't normally show up, unfortunately. You don't hear from the happy people. So I would not want to change the quorum, but we've offered prizes to try to get them here and contests, and still haven't been able to. So I think it's just if everybody reaches out and tries to get 3 people here that haven't been the last year or 2 and try to get it. We can only listen if we hear from the people. Online, we have all of our email numbers, all of our phone numbers. I have a blog, and people are more than welcome to respond to the blog. I mean, we are open. This administration posts every resolution. Previous administration did not. We didn't know what was being voted on. So we are very open. It's just that people are not taking advantage of it. So we can only do so, a council can only do so much. It's got to have the members helping also. So I would task all of our tribal members with coming to a meeting. It doesn't have to be general council. Come to a meeting. We also brought up the subject of holding it during the Delaware powwow and got shot down because people were, well, I need to be dressing my kids and I need to be working at my camp. But get somebody else to help at your camp that day. So I am all for having the council meeting during the Delaware powwow.
Thank you, Ms. Griffin. Mr. Johnson?
Well, back to just kind of the power of the 100 quorum. I think that was the original.
Why is it important
Why
to
is
have
it
100 quorum at general council?
Yes. Okay. Like Nikki said and Brad talked about, it is the power of the voice of the people. Homer also mentioned that, the power of the voice and hearing that voice. The importance of having that 100 quorum is to conduct business through the tribal members, actually them taking charge and conducting the business. They have that power through that quorum during that general council. They can suspend agendas and they can take over the meetings to push through the discussions that they want, the issues and things they want to address. And I know we have some different initiative petitions out across the board, all kinds of different things going on with tribal members. And they can take care of that during that general council meeting. If those petitions are still out there, they can conduct the business of the tribe and remove the representation of the tribal council from that, so they are representing themselves, which is what we're supposed to represent them in their capacity as a tribal council member. However, they can get rid of that block. There's no middleman between them and conducting business. So that's what is important about having a 100 quorum, that you take away all blocks between you and what is being done as a tribal member. So it is important to think about it that way. You don't have to go through your elected officials. You can conduct the business if you reach that 100 quorum. And I think that a lot of our members may not quite understand that, and I think we need to do a better job of letting them understand the power of what that 100 quorum would mean for them as tribal members. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. All right, Ms. Michael, this next question, it assumes a lot of things. It says, what can we do to reform the Constitution? And I'm assuming there's already some move or some need that you perceive, or this person perceives. So, reforming the Constitution, what are your comments about that?
I would be first on this one.
Yeah.
This is a big deal. Very big deal. Again, like I said in our previous answer, we have an imposed constitution. It's from the Oklahoma Indian Welfare Act. It is not our traditional system of governance. However, it is our system right now. So there's ways we've got to deal with, adjusting that to our traditional systems. How do we do that? That's the question. So there are multiple resources out there. Other tribes have done it. It is not an easy task, but to get some guidance, we could be working with University of Arizona. They have some guidance and some successes in working with tribes to do it. It may not be a one-step process. We may need to break it apart. Look at what's going on with the executive, see if that needs to be separate. Maybe the tribal members don't want it to be separate, but we need to have some discussions about how to make that work. There could be secretarial roles. What does that mean with the secretary? Does that mean that they have certain duties and that they're supposed to do those? And if it's unclear in the Constitution, then we end up fighting as a council over what that means. And that doesn't do us any good, because we need to be a team. And so my answer to that is, we have a lot of work to do on that, and I fully support it, but we also need to have some guidance and some professional assistance in doing so.
Thank you, Ms. Michael. All right, Mr. Scott.
Yes, on the Constitution, that's is more or less the setting of rules on what we need to discuss, or our guidelines on putting things out to people. What our differences in different, like the trust board and the council. We need to follow those guidelines, and if there's any things brought up, that could be talked amongst all the people here, as council members and tribal members and the trust board. We need everybody involved to do this for our amend our Constitution and what needs to be amended. Second, I'm answering this, that made it a little rough for me to think that over real fast, so that's all I have to say.
All right, thank you, Mr. Scott. Bonnie Jo Griffith?
Okay, the Constitution, it's not guidelines. That is the law of our tribe. Every counselor, every judge, every trust board member takes an oath to uphold that Constitution. In that Constitution, it states what we can and cannot do. Also, and in the Constitution, it states 100 quorum. That does not mean they can pass things on the floor of a general council meeting. They can pass something, but it doesn't make it law. That recommendation then goes, and the council has to have a 2/3 vote, or there has to be a referendum vote with a 2/3 approval. So a lot of people think if we get 100, we can just make all the laws we want to on the floor, and that can't be done, unfortunately. But there are a lot of things in there that need tweaked. I mean, and the trust board is not mentioned in the Constitution. There was no trust board when the Constitution was written. So we need a constitutional reform committee. And we tried this, but there is so much to it that I think it's going to have to be taken piece by piece and say, take Article A, Article 1, and work on it and make a referendum vote. Because if you throw everything out there at once, if one person disagrees with one thing, they'll vote the whole thing down. And it's hard to get 66 plus one vote of the Delawares to agree on anything. So we need constitutional change, absolutely. But the Constitution is being a little misrepresented. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Griffin. Mr. Johnson?
Like I've said before, this is it's a big issue. It's a giant undertaking, really. And I would agree, you have to take it piece by piece. You can't just do a complete overhaul of a constitution and be effective in doing so. I really think, though, we do need to modernize our constitution. But I also believe, I keep coming back to this, we have to have our vision and our goals for the tribe, and they have to align, both of those, our constitution, our vision, our goals. Because if we have vision and goals that aren't lawful by our constitution, then it's not going to work. So I think they go hand in hand. I think it is a long process. It's been 30 plus years since this one has been assigned to us. And the world has changed. The issues we face have changed immensely, and the Constitution does not guide, those laws do not guide a lot of the issues we face. They are outdated. We've had to change. I know there's been resolutions passed to change some aspects of it just for elections, things like that. So it's not aged well in many respects. And so it is something that needs to be taken into account. But again, like everyone here said, you can't just do it all at once. There's no way to overhaul the entire thing in 2 days, a month, 2 months. It's a long-term process that needs to be addressed seriously, but we do have to actually make that commitment. And we haven't yet, I believe, as a tribal council. We've tried initial things and small things, but overall, taking it as a larger, as a whole, and then piecing it out, it hasn't really been taken as, not seriously, but just the effort hasn't been put in as much as probably needs to be done. There needs to be a little more focus on that. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Mr. Hillsgrove?
Yes, the Constitution is the law, and it is the law of the Delaware people. Unfortunately, that's not how we were back in the day, but it's how we are today. Our Constitution is pretty vague. It's not modernized. We do need to take a look at it. There's a lot of amendments that need to be made to it, a lot of clarifications that need to be made to it. A lot of people interpret it differently. And then I believe with some arguments, that's how some arguments start and things get kind of twisted. Almost need a constitutional convention. I mean, we need the people to come together, and it's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen in 2 weeks, and it's not going to happen in a year. It's something that's going to take a lot of time, effort, thoughts, something that we're going to have to really think about. And I would like, the people of the tribe to be involved in it, and not it be a tribal council constitution, but be a constitution that each tribal member has had a say so and had a say in it and felt like they're a part of it. But my opinion, though, like I said, it does need to be looked at. It's vague. The interpretations, like I said, can be interpreted many different ways. We need to define it and make sure we're all on the same page, and that is all.
Thank you, Mr. Hillsgrove. All right, the next question, I have a couple left. They're real specific questions, so they may be shorter to answer, or they might be longer. All right, Mr. Scott, this question is, if we help individual tribal members across the Kansas state line with health care, why don't we help others living in the larger United States?
Okay, I've been on the trust board too. We had a committee to help people across the lines, across Kansas and all over the United States. We need to get more fundraisers to so we can look into and help people across the different states and bring them to our either internet or by phone, so we can discuss things that would help them out, and so we learn what we can do in the future for people out of the state.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Scott. Bonnie Jo Griffith?
Okay, I serve on the Community Services Committee of the Trust Board, and we help people all over the United States. I don't know where this came up that we don't. The Tribe's Community Services does. If people have dental work or glasses or have a doctor bill, we've got forms they can fill out and send in to the Community Services Committee, and we meet once a month and go through those. And there are some that are emergencies that we do poll votes to approve immediately so we can get a check out to them. So I'm not sure on the reasoning behind the question, unless it's that they live too far to get to an IHS facility or a Cherokee facility. But as far as our tribe helping them, the Community Services Committee of the Delaware Trust Board certainly helps a lot of people nationwide.
Okay, that's a good educational piece. Mr. Johnson?
I don't know how much more I can add to that, honestly. I mean,
Right.
we do have the services available through the programs they can apply for. Every tribal member has access to IHS of some sort if it's available in the area. I just really don't know if this is a specific instance referring, and I know you don't have any
No, I don't
clarification
have it yet.
also.
And they may not know. They may
Yeah.
not have understood what you
And
said.
so there are all kinds of programs they can apply for, services, and IHS is open. I know, as a matter of fact, I live in an area where the Chickasaw Hospital services myself and my family, so we're managed to go through that in IHS. So there are all kinds of services available to tribal members, and I think that we can help get that information out there a little bit more. Maybe that would alleviate a question like this where they feel they aren't being served through the tribe.
All right, thank you, Mr. Johnson. Mr. Kilsgrove?
Could you repeat the question?
Okay, it says, if we help individual tribal members across the Kansas state line with health care assistance, why don't we help others living in the larger United States?
And that's a question that I've reached out to a lot of tribal members that don't live in a service area exactly. But it sounds like, you know, we do offer services, but maybe not to the extent as an IHS could offer. Maybe not to the extent of they could go to an ER and be seen, or if they, diabetic program, or, maybe they just live in a place where there's just not those services available. Going back to my economic development and with the trust board, that's my whole reasoning of wanting to run is to make money to put into services so we can service people all throughout the United States of America who may not be in a position. Elderly gentlemen may be in 200-300 miles away from the nearest diabetic place. We want to be able to, if we have a good economic development system plan in place, we can provide them monies and they can seek the services they need. So I think that's about it.
All right, thank you, Mr. Kilsgrove. Ms. Michael?
Great. I actually think this is a really good question. Having been in several different states, even in the last 4 years, Wyoming, it was 3 hours to the nearest health services. Colorado, it's really a difficult challenge to try to get into any urban clinics. So for those that are outside of Oklahoma, I think that's what the question is getting to. I've seen other tribes develop insurance pools with their tribal members, and I think that might be one solution we could use. And I think that would be really important for some of those cases like Brad is talking about, where there's terminal cases, or even those isolated incidents. I know that we have a case where we need to provide a baby with a home, we need to think and kind of reach outside the box and try to figure out how this heart transplant baby can be safe in a healthy environment. So those are important questions that I think that some of us that have in-house services and are used to being able to go outside 50 miles and get those services may not be aware of some of those other challenges that some people across the rest of the United States face.
Great, thank you, Ms. Michael. All right, the next and the last question is Bonnie Jo Griffith, and it's a very specific question. It is, what are your thoughts about the possibility of having a Bartlesville community apartment, or a quotation mark, Hope House, to help out-of-state tribal members who are in dire need of medical attention?
That's interesting. That question's never been asked. Okay, they said a Hope, H-O-P-E house?
Yeah, Hope
Okay.
House. In other words, a
Okay.
place, and just as a community apartment, or call it,
Okay.
I guess a place where you can hope that you're going to get service.
Get services.
Right.
That's a very, very great idea. I think that's something that as a council we should look at. We generally have in our housing department an empty house or two that someone could temporarily move in while they're here getting treatment or something. So I think that's something that we certainly could look into and find a way to help members that need to come in here so that they have the medical services that they need.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Johnson?
Yeah, not exactly knowing what's going on, specifics on certain things. Yeah, I think it's a great idea also. I think that it also comes back to the question of developing healthcare services for our members. More so, I think that there are avenues that we can pursue that would help support something like that. Even I know we could do it. Obviously, she said we could look at some of the housing issues or vacancies and things and be able to provide those spaces. But also, I think we need to be able to work in coordination with the health services we have in developing more health services for our members who are here, if that happens, where they can have a more comprehensive care while they're in a Hope House, and where we can have even if it's in-house visits and things, but we have to develop those things. And there are partnerships we can create doing those things with IHS, with our MOA. There are provisions in there that we need to look a little bit more closely at that actually provide for avenues to achieve those things. So I just want to say that, I'm going to put that out there, that we have avenues to increase our health services through our MOA, and we just need to kind of take
For all of us out here, what is it?
the memorandum of agreement with the CEO of the Cherokee Nation. And we do have that avenue to pursue some of those. I think we just need to take a closer look at those to help folks like that. And I'd love to be able to have a Hope House for them to come and stay in and get those services and be able to be provided through our tribe and through their people. So
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Mr. Kilsgrove?
I'm going to ask one more time to repeat that question.
Okay, what are your thoughts about having a Bartlesville community apartment or a Hope House to help out-of-state tribal members who are in dire need of medical attention?
Okay. The first thing I like to address is I'm not sure as far as the Delaware Nation and the Delaware tribe here is we need to get involved with our community and our community resources and outreach to them to see what services the city of Bartlesville has. First off, we need to have a good partnership with the city of Bartlesville. Maybe there's something already in place, intact, that we can tap into easily. You know, I'm not 100% sure. I live in Ponca City. I know there's several resources over there for homeless people in need of exactly a Hope House situation. I would like to see what kind of services the city of Bartlesville has, and what kind of working relationship does the Delaware tribe have with the city of Bartlesville, and could we maybe work together and pull some funds together, get some grants together, and maybe open up a Hope House with the tribe and the city together, and service everybody. Not necessarily just Delaware tribes, but if we can reach out to the community and find out what services are available, what organizations are available. If we can go out there and reach out and put our make a strong relationship, I think that it's very, very possible, and it wouldn't have to. We wouldn't have to suffer all the costs and consequences and all that. We could be in a partnership with the city of Bartlesville, because I know that I know there's probably services out there. I'm just not aware of them. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cosgrove. Ms. Michael?
Well, the Hope House would be an amazing asset. I think that, it's a really great idea, and I would love to see something like that implemented. I think we could, model it after the violence against women. We've partnered with Bartlesville in that, and so whenever we have a woman or a family in need of a place to hide or stay, we have that partnership that we can send that, abused person to. But I know this would be more in terms of healthcare, it sounds to me like. So I think that model would be an excellent way to begin that process. But I also want to add to it, I think we need emergency services, period. Emergency services in the form of, we've got hundreds of members in North and South Carolina right now that are dealing with floods, or California members that were dealing with fires. I think we need to be able to provide more for our members overall in the terms of emergency management, not just here, but overall. And I think this is one example of it. And I just want to say it really is a dream of mine to make sure that we would be able to take care of all those vulnerable people that whenever they're hurting, that we'd be able to be there for them.
Thank you, Ms. Michael. Mr. Scott?
Yes, I agree with the Christian people here, candidates here. To have one of these hope houses for health services is an opening for a lot of our members if they have problems come to the Hope House. And we have, if we get into our medical field, like I said earlier about our elders had somebody there for them for medical problems and everything. Those services can be also used in these Hope Houses to with their help them with their health, and we also could have other services in there to help teach them how to get back on their feet and doing other things and teaching them jobs and stuff like that. That could help them in a lot of ways, and it opens up a big field for us as a community.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. All right, now we're time for closing remarks, and we will start with Mr. Johnson. You have 2 minutes for closing remarks.
Well, I want to thank everyone for giving me the opportunity to speak, and I want to thank the panel, the candidates for the discussions we've had, and just the honor and respect of sitting up here with you guys. I want to say that I have a lot of emotion when it comes to this tribe. I've been involved my entire life. My grandparents have been involved pretty much their entire lives. My grandmother specifically, Mary Waters, and I hope I get the chance to kind of keep walking down that path that she has set for me. And I really want to say that I want to be a agent of change, positive change for our members. I want to be able to serve our members. I want to empower our tribal employees and our tribal directors and our tribal members to achieve the success that they are able to give them a chance to succeed. I want to open up communication in ways that we haven't seen before. I'd like to utilize all avenues. I know I've talked before about social media. I know it's one aspect of it, but there are certain ways we can start reaching out a little bit more effectively for our tribal members to communicate in multiple ways. I think that we need to really focus on fully implementing ICWA in our court systems. We really need to get these things out there for our tribal members. There is no other focus for me, honestly. I would not be putting myself in this position if I did not want to help increase the services and opportunities our tribal members have for success and health and even just cultural well-being. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Mr. Kilsgrove?
Thank you. Thank you to all of our candidates and to you ladies there for putting this on. all those that are listening to Facebook land, thank you for tuning in. I come to you humbly just as a young man, nobody special. I'm not anybody important. I'm a disabled veteran, served in the United States Navy. I believe I've learned a lot of my leadership skills through my military experience. I carry those skills on over to my family and on to my job that I'm doing now with the Tonkawa tribe, which is such a successful tribe, and do so many things. Again, going back to what I said earlier, I question myself, why am I putting all my effort and time into helping these other people out when I could come here and help my own people out? And that's what I want to do. That's where my heart is. That's what I've prayed about. That's what I've thought about, is helping my own people out, all the way from our little ones, all the way to our elders. And that's the main reason, the only reason that I'm running is to help. Like I said, like Jeremy, I wouldn't put myself out there just because of a title or anything like that. I just come here as humbly as possible and offer my ear and hopefully a voice for the people. I want to be able to talk to all the people, all the Delaware people, all throughout the United States, and not just listen, but act upon your requests. Get back to you, let you know, find things out, be as transparent as I possibly can, and be a good candidate and be a good leadership for all of our children. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cosgrove. Ms. Michael?
Well, I'd like to thank the candidates up here as well, and the League of Women Voters, and all the audience members, and all the Delaware members that put me in office last year. And just to tell you, it has been my honor, and I've learned so much. It is a humbling experience. Sometimes, really, you can't do much, but just be an ear for a tribal member. And I think when I thought of running the first time, it was like, oh, I want to make all these changes, and I realized, it's not that easy. You've got to get in and make those gains slowly. But I also learned, when there's a crying tribal member and they're calling you, make time for them, because that's the one that really needs you. It's like when no one else cares, they're going to have their tribe. That's what we're here for. And as long as they know we care, oftentimes they're more willing to be patient and willing to work with us until we can get some of the solutions that they need. I also want to just kind of say that we have some avenues that we haven't touched upon with our MOU with the Cherokee Nation. I think we need to start enforcing those more, really being aggressive with that MOU, particularly when we want to take care of our children, ICWA. And I've been blessed to be a part of the growth of ICWA and the child support services. And then the last thing I want to say is that I really hope that we can move our tribe into the 21st century. I think we have a lot of work to do to modernize and get ourselves aligned and caught up with the rest of the tribes, let alone the world.
Thank you, Ms. Michael. Mr. Scott.
Okay, first I want to congratulate and thank you for your service, Brad. I'm also a veteran. It taught me a lot. I would like, as a member of the council, I would like, have more of a talk with our people to get our people more interested in what we're doing, and to try to step out of our boundaries to go out into different states or whatever, to talk to these people, to get our people, so we can get more information on what their goals are, so we can bring them up to our council here to discuss these, what they would like for their future, for the future of the tribe too, in different states. That's what I would like to do for have this as a different tribal member, to reach out for these people. These young people is our future. This is what we're going to teach them. This teach him as a council member, to teach looking for and for reaching out for them. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Bonnie Jo Griffith?
Yes, I feel like myself, along with the council, has worked very hard the last 4 years. We've brought a lot to the tribe. I haven't done it, the council has done it. Chief Brooks hasn't done it, the council has done it. We've worked as a group. We don't always agree. We shouldn't always agree. But at the end of the day, we can get mad at each other, but we come together and support whatever the council is doing. I want to continue work on the Constitution. I want to continue work on getting that land into trust. Once that happens, that's a whole new ballgame for this tribe. Once we get trust land, we will be able to do so much more. And we've got connections. I want to continue those connections at the Department of Interior with John Tasunda's office and push that through. The judgment funds, we did that as a team to get those funds. Yes, Benita Shea and I were the two probably sending the most emails and phone calls, but it's kind of like the squeaky wheel. So I want to continue that. I'm the only council member other than Chief Brooks that's here on almost every day in my office working. And we need someone here on the ground every day helping get through the day on the calls and things that come in. So I'm honored to be here. I want to thank the League of Women Voters. This is the third time I believe y'all have helped us out. And along with my son, who's getting stationed in South Korea in less than a month, I want to thank Brad and Homer both for their service. And we honor our veterans. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Griffith, and thank all of you today. And the League of Women Voters appreciates your keeping to the time frames.
Yeah, 5-minute break. Were you freezing? I just turned it off.
No, it's fine. My legs were just, I realized I sort of locked my
I was